Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate, day number 605. 605. Sunday, November 11th. Is that right? 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let's get to the breaking news of the day. As I'm coming to you, it's of course late Saturday evening. It's about 10 o'clock Saturday evening. So what we know, not a lot going on today, just more of the same. Let's get into it. And then I want to talk a little bit more about Mr. Whitaker. So we have the recount going on right now, according to the Secretary of State of Florida has determined it will be a recount, and it will affect the governor's race, the senator race, as well as I think another third official. I'm not sure what that position is, but it's another official. So there's three officials now that are waiting to see who won the election. Waiting to see. So obviously it's a fiasco going on down there in Broward County. There's another county. There's also issues there, and this is all being sorted out. It looks like they have until next Thursday to count up them votes. And what's kind of amazing now is that you're hearing both Gillum and Nelson's lawyers fighting to include non-citizen votes. Non-citizen votes. It's in a way what they're saying is, yeah, well, a lot of our votes came from people who are illegal, non-citizens, and we want those votes counted just like they were the first time. I don't think it's going to happen. So it looks like that process will continue. We'll probably know, I assume at this point, that we are going to hold that seat. Both seats, I think we'll hold the governor's seat. I think we'll hold the Senate seat. Out in Nevada, it's now it looks like McSally is now down 22,000 votes. Despite the fact that Arizona is a red state, a lot of these recent votes, 35,000 of them or so, are coming from two red counties. And not only that, here's something even more remarkable, is that they voted for a Republican governor. Now, it happens. I mean, it happened here in Ohio. We ended up with a Republican governor, but we ended up with a Democrat senator. So it can certainly happen. But Ohio is a swing state. It's a purple state. Sometimes it goes Republican, sometimes it goes Democrat. This will be our second consecutive Republican governor, though. And, of course, Sherrod Brown was a senator. He was just reelected. He's an incumbent. And so incumbents have a tendency to get reelected about 98% of the time. So a little bit different issues going on there. But something else, we're getting some more numbers. Of course, don't want to forget Georgia. What's going on down there in Georgia is also a joke. Stacey Abrams, and but she was pretty far behind a lot of votes, and I don't think they're going to find the vote she needs to steal the election there. And hopefully, the Republicans have got some attorneys down there watching this, and I'm sure they do. Trump said that he's definitely going to get involved and send people down there. And we know he had a task force. Now you think this task force would have been targeting Broward County and targeting a lot of these these states where these Senate races were, where they knew it was going to come down to 1 or 2%. You think they would have really been focused on these, but we haven't heard anything out of this special task force that was supposed to prevent this type of stuff from happening. But we'll keep our ears open and see what we hear as the days go on. But I believe most of this will be wrapped up within, I think by the end of next week, most of this election stuff will be wrapped up and we'll actually know who won what. But it's really important, the Florida governorship and that Senate seat, really important. Really important for 2020 to have both Ohio and Florida with Republican governors, and in this particular case in Ohio, a Republican governor that supports Trump, that being DeWine, because Kasich really didn't. And it did make Trump's job tougher here in Ohio, certainly, but he still won by 11%. So, but we'll keep watching that. But there's some more election stuff that's come out that's pretty interesting, which we talked a little bit about before the vote, which was how much Trump and Republicans in general are starting to cut into the Democrats' base of black and Latino voters. And so we found out that 29% of Latinos voted for Republicans in this recent election. 29%. Now, Trump got 28% nationally from the Latino vote. So as you can see, it's creeping up. He's getting, Republicans are cutting into the Latino vote. Sure that they're cutting into the black vote. I haven't seen the numbers on that yet, but I'm sure that those numbers will be out soon. And I expect we're going to see that the Republicans, thanks to Trump, are getting an uptick both in Latino and black voters. And by 2020, this could go up by another 1-2 percentage points. So, and these types of numbers seem small, but as you can see, these elections are close, and 1, 2, 3% can make a huge difference. It can make the difference between having a big night, a really good night, or a really bad night, especially when you are cutting directly into the Democratic base, which is black and Latino voters. So we also learned that in Texas, which a lot of people are very concerned that Texas is going to go back to being a blue state, which, if you look at the demographics, if things continue as they are, you could make that case, as long as you're assuming that Latino will always vote in a much larger majority for Democrats than they do for Republicans. And they do vote in a larger majority for Democrats, but that is shrinking. And we can see that Ted Cruz in Texas got 35% of the Latino vote. And Greg Abbott, the governor, got 42% of the Latino vote. So, a lot of Latinos are conservative. Keep in mind, a lot of these people that come from Central America, they are Catholic. And Catholic and Protestant mostly, which means that they have a conservative streak in them. Most Protestants are pretty conservative, and the Catholics who come from Central America are fairly well conservative, and a lot of Latinos are conservative because a lot of them are self-employed. They come here and start small businesses, roofing businesses, landscaping businesses, cleaning businesses. So these people that come here from Central America, Latinos that come here, a lot of them come here and start small businesses in the service industries. And these are industries where you have to work really hard. The profit margins are really small. And so they really pay attention to things like taxes, business taxes, personal taxes, regulations, and things and such. They pay attention to the core pocketbook issues that a lot of people in that right on the edge of middle class or sloping into the lower middle class, the people who really have to focus, the people who get paid every week and they got to figure out what bill to pay, sort of people who live on that, and I've been there. I mean, I remember many years ago, for years I was, in that sort of situation where it was like pretty tight, obviously it's not so much that issue anymore. Not that I'm rich, but I mean, I don't, sweat, paying my bills or anything. But there are a lot of people who do. And for those people, they do pay attention. And they know that Republicans want to cut your taxes and Democrats want to raise your taxes. And if you have a business, even the people who come up here from Central America, Latinos, blacks, people like that, they understand that Republicans are better for business, better for your taxes. So it's economic issues are going to drive a lot of why you're going to see more and more blacks and Latinos move over to Trump and Republicans, because, and especially if Trump is as successful as I think he can be in the next 6 years at really improving a lot of these cities that have been destroyed by liberal leadership, such as Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, and other places. I'm sure at some point Trump is going to address that situation. He's doing it in a general way through his sort of economic and tax policy. But at some point, I expect he is really going to target these areas. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's something that he does for 2020 to really energize and drive minority voters to come out and go for Republicans, because he implored them to give him a chance in 2016. Many of them did, and he is gaining support among them. I think he understands how important it's going to be in 2020. Even if he can capture 1 or 2% more of the Black Latino vote, it will really help him in 2020. So I do expect that to happen, and we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm pretty sure we can expect he's going to be looking at that very hard, especially as you see the white suburban women going more Democrat. They went to Democrats in this most recent election, and that's why we lost some of these House seats. White women, for whatever reason, I think it's probably a lot the abortion issue. I mean, women, there's a lot of women that are single issue voters, and it's abortion. I mean, they want legal abortion, and if they anything that they think threatens that, especially if they listen to a lot of propaganda, that's going to motivate them. So we'll just have to continue watching that. But this is a good sign, and I take it as a positive, and you should all see it the same way. Well, we have that idiot Michael Moore who's calling for people to hit the streets over the appointment of Matt Whitaker, who we're going to be talking about mostly in this video toward the end. Now, this is good, and it suggests to me that Trump may have outsmarted a lot of people again. The way he did this, he fired Sessions, essentially asked for his resignation, same thing as firing, immediately. I mean, he did not even wait for all the election results to come in. I mean, 24 hours, less than 24 hours after the election is over, he fires Sessions, essentially, forces him to resign. And then he puts in Whitaker. But he doesn't nominate him to be his attorney general. He brings him in as sort of an interim attorney general until he interviews a bunch of people and appoints the person he believes will be the person he'll want to put up for nomination, because he has to be approved through the Senate. So I'm not sure I can sit here and tell you exactly what Trump's strategy is here, but obviously it seems to me that he didn't just name a successor right now because he probably doesn't want them having to go through the nomination process with the current Senate that's there, because the new Senate, which will be much favorable to him, does not take over until January. So he's still got the old gang in there in the Senate. So that's probably why he did a sort of a recess appointment or a temporary appointment. But it doesn't mean that Whitaker is not going to be the guy that he decides to go with. It just means that what Trump was smart enough to realize is that he doesn't want the nomination process for his new attorney general to happen with this Senate. He wants the new Senate. So he may wait till after the 1st of January and then say, okay, Matt's my guy. Matt Whitaker's my guy. Now that I got my people in the Senate, let's go ahead and get him confirmed to be my new attorney general. But I think that'll have a lot to do with what Whitaker does in the next 60 days. He's got really a 60-day trial period to decide to do, whatever he's going to do, and that will help Trump make a decision. Is this my guy or is this not that guy? Now, Whitaker has to understand this. He would probably like to be the attorney general. I would assume he would. He certainly didn't turn down the temporary or interim position. So you can bet that he understands very well what Trump wants to see and why Sessions was sent packing. So it's very likely that Whitaker is going to try to impress Trump. He's going to have to be careful with what he does in the Mueller affair, and I'm sure that he's been told, okay, you don't want to just go in and fire Mueller or whatever, but he can certainly rein him in. He can certainly call him into his office and say, okay, I want to know what you're working on. I want to know what you got. What's your plan? When's your report coming out? And so he can certainly curtail Mueller, and he can do it easiest way he can do that is by limiting his budget, because the Attorney General determines, or he's the one who frees up the money for the special counsel. So Whitaker could cut his budget in half. He can say, okay, your budget's just been cut in half. You got to fire half your people. I want this thing wrapped up. Get to the bottom of it. What do you got? And I think that this is what Whitaker understands. So I think that you are going to see that's going to be his first priority, to get Mueller to wrap his investigation up, get it done, and get it over with. They both know that they have nothing on Trump. So I think that's the first thing. But it's very telling that a lot of people on the left, like Michael Moore, a lot of left members of Congress, a lot of left members of the media, pundits, are already complaining that Trump is trying to obstruct the Mueller investigation by bringing in Whitaker. And, well, there's some truth to that. He's trying to get it wrapped up. No question about that. I mean, any president would do that, Democrat or Republican. If you had a witch hunt going on and it was pretty obvious that you weren't happy with it. I mean, it's not like Trump's, hiding it, the fact that he thinks it's a witch hunt. Whitaker certainly knows that. So I think that Whitaker's smart. He'll curtail the Mueller investigation. He'll get it wrapped up, and he would like to have it done in 2 months. Because in 2 months, Trump's going to make a decision whether or not Whitaker even gets a shot to be the regular Attorney General. If he does good, if he gets the Mueller investigation wrapped up, and keep in mind, Whitaker will also be the person who will, who will decide whether or not the Mueller report even gets released. It doesn't have to be released to the public. That's a decision made by the Attorney General, or in this case, the acting Attorney General. He can say, okay, well, we're not going to release the report. What he'll likely do, he may release the report, but it's very likely what he'll do is he'll release his own report, which will be sort of a report of the report. He won't release the actual nuts and bolts of every single bit of the actual Mueller report, but he can release like a summary report and say, okay, here's what we learned from the Mueller investigation. Here's a summary report, and put it in more plain language, and just narrow it down to what the findings were without a lot of the, going into a lot of the details and this and that and the other. So there's a couple things that he can do here. But you can be assured that he is going to try to limit the amount of damage that it does to Trump. Because we know that Whitaker never really liked this investigation anyway, and has thought it's out of scope, didn't like the people who were on it, thought they were very biased. So he's got a bias. And I think that that will show up in how he handles it. But I think, again, about Whitaker, what impresses me about him, he sounds like a straight shooter. He's a tough guy. I don't think he'll be intimidated the way Sessions was. So, and he's not a deep stater, I don't think, like Rodenstein, who will, cover himself first, look out for his own interests first, and the deep state and the DOJ and all those, also he'll look out for them as well. So that's not quite what I see in Whitaker. I see a different character here. But I don't know for sure. As I said, I'll need about a month or two to watch Whitaker and see exactly what he does. And here in a few weeks, we'll know. We'll have a pretty good idea what Whitaker is going to be like and whether or not we can count on him to expose the crimes of the previous administration and the frame-up, the attempted coup. Well, looks like Trump is moving 15,000 troops from Pipelineistan to the U.S.-Mexico border. And this is something that's been going on for a while now. Trump is wanting a strategy for a victory in Afghanistan. But he never really gets one because there isn't one. It's just, well, we just got to stay there to keep the terrorists from getting a stronghold, from coming back. And that's been used for a long time, but it's exhausting a lot of resources. And, we can't have this amount of troops in a place like Afghanistan for now until hell freezes over, or anywhere else. At some point, the people in that country are going to have to fight their own battles, and it's a drain on resources, on the military, and it's not very popular. So I think this is a very good move to get those troops out of Pipelineistan, and 15,000 of them, and to bring them back here and put them at the U.S.-Mexico border. That's exactly what Trump's going to do. And that's a very good plan. I agree with that 100%. One more thing about Whitaker before we get into more about Whitaker. There's a lot of people saying, well, he's got 210 days and then he has to go. It's only it's a 210-day, basically 7 months temporary appointment. Well, yes and no. It's 210 days, but you are able to file for an extension for another 210 days. So conceivably, Whitaker could actually be around for 420 days. 420. He could be around for 420. Now, I don't expect that's going to happen. What I expect to see is that within a couple of months, Trump's going to know whether or not Whitaker is the guy. And if he does good, which means he ends the Mueller probe correctly without creating a political shitstorm, and gets that behind him, and then he shows an interest and maybe a special counsel to look into the real crimes that happened in the 2016 election. If he does things that please Trump, then Trump will say, yeah, I like this guy. He's doing really good. I think I'm going to go ahead and stay with this guy. This is the guy I want. Let's put him up for nomination. And so I don't think it'll even take the full 210. And I don't see him going for the extension. Could do it, but I don't see it happening. I think Trump wants to get his guy in there as soon as he finds out who his guy is. And this just allows him to have a little test run. So it's a smart move on Trump's part. Number one, he gets to see before he actually pulls the trigger on the guy, like he did with Sessions, thinking Sessions would be his guy. Turns out he wasn't. At least it appears that way. Trump doesn't feel he was his guy. So by doing this, plus he gets to avoid the current Senate, and he gets to have his nomination in front of the new Senate, which would be much more favorable. So I think there's a couple things going on here, and we just have to watch. But you can actually get a 210-day extension after the first 210 days if you want to do that. I don't think it'll happen, but we'll see. I'm not willing to wait 440 days for action. I don't know about you. If I don't see action in the next 60 days when the Democrats take over, if I don't see action by then, yeah, I'll say pick someone else. In other words, I mean the Mueller probe wrapped up and a special counsel appointed. Wrap up Mueller's special counsel probe and start a new one to investigate the real crimes. That's what I want to see in 60 days. If I don't see it, I'm likely not going to be much of a supporter of Whitaker because my patience is running out. We also have now a Florida campaign worker who has signed a sworn affidavit alleging that she witnessed Broward County elections staff filling in blank ballots. And not just a couple. Many. And when she observed this and she went and reported it, she was fired. She's now signed a sworn affidavit. And so this will now be investigated. I think there could be some consequences for some of these people down there in Broward County if they find some election fraud going on. I really do. And the same in Georgia and Arizona. I do think that Trump is going to be watching these very closely. And if he finds out there was shenanigans going on, I think he is going to push for the Department of Justice to prosecute. And now he's got a prosecutor he believes will enforce the law. I don't know how many of you saw that speech that Nancy Pelosi, Madam Botox, gave the other night. It was hilarious. At one point in the speech, she said, "And we're going to drain the swamp." Is there anything funnier than watching? It's not the first time I've seen one of these old croners that have been around for like 70 years telling people, we're going to drain the swamp. They don't even realize they are the swamp. That's how out of touch they are. And I'm telling you, Nancy Pelosi is going to have a very tough time. It's going to be like herding wild cats, because she's got an issue with about 30 or 40 members of that caucus there in the Democratic Party in Congress that want to oust her as Speaker. They don't want her. So she's going to have probably a little bit of a fight. Now, she's got the, people behind her and the money and all that to probably put down this deal. But she's still got to be able to control these crazy people who are going to continue to act crazy and even more crazy. And now they'll get more media attention because they're in the majority. So controlling these crazies in her party may prove to be the most difficult thing that she has to do. And she doesn't have much time because, in about 18 months, we'll be back into 2020 election mode. In fact, less than that. In about 14 months. Right? Yeah. We'll be back in less than that. About 14 months, we'll be back into full election mode for 2020. And she'll be trying to hold on to the House. So she is in a situation where she can't allow her crazy Democrats like Ocasio-Cortez and all the rest to go completely off the rails and do nothing but obstruct, which is what they've been doing. But they were in the minority then. When you're in the majority, that doesn't work. It looks bad when you're in the majority. So that game plan is going to have to be replaced with another one. We'll see how that works out for Madame Botox and how she handles that. It's going to be difficult. Devin Nunes has submitted 42 more names. This will be the third letter he has written to Goodlatte and Gowdy with 42 more names. Some of these I think are people that has been on the list before, one of the other lists, that he wants to be interviewed before the new Congress takes over. They got 60 days. So what can we expect in the next 60 days before the Democrats take over? Well, we can expect, first of all, Gowdy and Goodlatte are going to release their report from all the interviews and all the depositions they've taken and all they've done. We know that both Goodlatte and Gowdy have both called for a special counsel. They've actually written letters to Sessions and asked him to appoint a special counsel to look into the FISA abuse and the corruption in the FBI and DOJ, which he never did, as far as we know. We also have the IG report that's supposed to come out that Trump said he wanted to come out very quickly. It didn't come out before the midterms. We expected it might. It didn't. He turned all that declassified stuff over to Huckleberry Horowitz, the IG. So I would think if Huckleberry, by the time the new Congress takes over, has not produced his report, I expect that will be the last straw for Trump, and that will certainly trigger the declassification, if not sooner. If not sooner. I mean, Whitaker may go ahead and say, I think we should just declassify it now. He just might. We know he's in support of it. We have Papadopoulos, who is telling us that a lot of things are going to be coming out in this report that we don't know, including this spy who was in the campaign. Not the spies that tried to set him up, but the actual inside spy inside the Trump campaign, which there's a couple names being thrown out there who that could be, including this character Mike Rogers. Papadopoulos wants to testify in an open hearing and tell his story. Could be very compelling. Could be more evidence that is needed to get the special counsel. Carter Page, of course, has filed the lawsuit against the DNC and against Perkins Coie. I believe that the initial hearings for that will begin right after the first of the year. A lot of things are going to come out of that as well. Of course, we already talked about the declassification, how that could certainly happen. We have the possibility that Jim Jordan could become the minority leader. He'll be battling it out with Kevin McCarthy. I will be calling my congressman, obviously, on Monday. I think they're going to have the vote on Wednesday. So I'll be calling my congressman on Monday to tell him I want him to support Jordan for Speaker. I encourage you all to do the same, if that's the way you feel. So a lot of people were asking the question, is Matthew Whitaker going to be the guy? Is he going to be the guy to expose the Spygate? And he certainly has a lot of people on the left worried. We can see they're throwing a fit, wanting him to recuse himself. He's not going to. And he's not a weak guy. He's a much stronger personality, much tougher guy, I think, than Sessions or Rodenstein. And I think that they'll have a lot of issues. I just don't think they'll be successful at forcing him to resign. There would have to be some legal reason why he would have to do that, and I don't think there is, from what I've heard from some legal experts like Levin and various other people make the argument, no, he worked for Clovis, that's okay. He's made these statements as a pundit, that's okay. None of that affects him being over these investigations. He's nowhere near as compromised as Rodenstein or anyone else at the DOJ. So, just a few things before the video ends about Matthew Whitaker that I think are important to know for background information so that we can kind of understand where he may go. We know that Whitaker was appointed by George W. Bush in 2004. But when Obama won in 2008, Whitaker resigned. Now, he was likely forced out, because likely someone went to Obama and said, okay, we got this U.S. attorney in Iowa. You don't want this guy. This guy's a straight shooter. He's honest. He's a conservative Republican. We're going to be doing a lot of crime. You're going to want to get this guy out, because generally a U.S. attorney doesn't quit and go work for a think tank. When his career, when he's reached that point of U.S. attorney, you don't generally walk away from that as a career person and then go work for a think tank. It's generally when you're forced out, and I'm sure he was forced out as the U.S. attorney by the Obama administration in 2008. So he goes to work in 2008 and becomes the president of a group called FACT. They're a group very much like Judicial Watch. FACT stands for Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. They're a government watchdog sort of group that also pursues crimes by government. This is on their website. They pursue crimes by government officials and agencies. They utilize the legal process, including litigation. They go after state and federal record requests, meaning FOIA requests and other records. They take on ethics complaints by government officials. They take on IRS complaints. Okay, they're pretty tough people then. They take on FEC complaints. And they investigate both federal and state agencies, a lot like Judicial Watch. Their mission statement is kind of long, but there's a part in there where it says that they're dedicated to exposing unethical behavior and making sure that it gets attention that it deserves, and investigating, essentially exposing to the public by way of TV, print, and social media to ensure that the truth comes out. So his history is that he was president of an organization that's all about getting the truth out about government corruption. And it's good that he understands the role of media in all of this. So that means that when he launches, if he does launch his investigation, appoint a special counsel or whatever, it's good to know that he headed up a group like this. And it's clear from the mission statement, and he was president of this organization, that he understands the importance of the media narrative, getting control of the media narrative. He clearly gets that. So there's a lot of things going on here that appear to me that this was no accident, that Whitaker was the guy that's been put in here. And the fact that he was put in there as a temporary, I understand the two main reasons for that, of course. Because you want the good Senate coming in, which won't come in for 2 months, to be the ones to have the hearings for him. And of course, you want to be able to try him out and see if he's actually going to fight the way Trump will fight. And Trump's given every indication, especially that final little presser he did, where he said that he'll be talking a lot more about the horrible things that Obama did in the future. I think Trump has every intention. I think this is the beginning of the takedown of the people who tried to take him down. Let's all keep watching very carefully. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back on Monday with more TowerGate. See you guys. Have a good night. Bye.